Everything in Solana is an account. So it's about time that we look at accounts in depth. The first question that's probably on everyone's mind is what makes having everything accounts so special? What makes it a Solana power? Well, one result of this is that it helps make Solana a lot faster. We already know that Solana is really fast because of proof history, but it also happens because of accounts too. So what do I mean by this? Well, in other chains, transactions are processed one at a time. Let's say these transactions are cars. Transactions are processed one at a time, so they'd each have to take turns to get processed into a block. On the other hand, with Solana, transactions can run in parallel, almost like a multi-road highway. This, of course, makes Solana a lot faster. So why does this happen and what does it have to do with accounts? Well, let's look at how transactions occur on other chains first. In Ethereum, let's say that we have a smart contract that sends money from Scott to Gianna. In Ethereum, smart contracts have their own storage. So if this is the smart contract, it also stores the balances within the smart contract. Because Scott and Gianna's information is stored in this smart contract, if we try to run two transactions at once, we could run into problems. For example, if one contract was spending Scott's money and sending it to Gianna, and we had another contract that wanted to figure out what Scott's balance was, we would run into an issue because we wouldn't know if Scott's balance was 5 or 4, or even something else if there were other transactions being run at the same time. That's why transactions in Ethereum are run one at a time to avoid this issue. That means that even if these transactions weren't even related, like these two over here, they still wouldn't be run at the same time because of the chance of there being any conflict. However, Solana has found a solution to this through accounts. In Solana, the program, which is the smart contract, and the balances are separated into accounts. This means that they are separated from each other, and each of these are their own types of accounts. So this program is an account, Scott's wallet is an account, and Gianna's wallet is also an account. In this sense, the program is stateless because this program doesn't hold any data in it. That way, if another program wants to use Scott or Gianna's information, for example, if we wanted to read Scott's balance, then it knows that it's being used currently by another program. Because of this, if we have another program, like reading Scott's balance, this program would recognize that Scott's wallet is currently being used and that transaction wouldn't be run. Because of this, other transactions that aren't using the same accounts can run in parallel. And this means that thousands of more transactions can be run in parallel, making Solana a lot faster. So now that we know that everything is basically an account, let's read more about this, the idea of accounts, in the docs. As a side note, the reason why we go and read docs so much is because the docs are your friend. There isn't always going to be slides explaining to you things, and eventually you're going to have to learn how to use and understand docs. This skill is really important to have in the future. So with that being said, let's head to the docs. So here we are reading about accounts in the docs. The first thing that it says is that if the program needs to store state between transactions, it does so using accounts. So this is just like we talked about, in that if we want to store state, like a wallet balance, then we can do that through accounts. The description continues in the docs, saying that accounts are similar to files in operating systems, in that they may hold arbitrary data that persists beyond the lifetime of a program. So you can think of these data accounts as files for more information that a program can use. There's a lot more information about accounts, which I highly recommend you read in your own time. In the meantime, let's get into more terminology. So, like we said, everything is an account. This means that not only do we have accounts like data, which includes things like wallets, balances, or other arbitrary information like that. All this information is usually in the form of arbitrary data structures. Programs, which we also know as smart contracts, are also accounts. These are just called program accounts. And the difference between program accounts and data accounts is that program accounts are executable, while data accounts are not executable. You might remember the term executable because when we were working with programs, we had to make sure that programs were executable. And then finally, program accounts are in the form of bytecode, which is also known as BPF. To learn a little bit more about accounts, we're actually going to go to the Explorer to look at a wallet and other things that are also accounts. Okay, so let's look at this wallet. Firstly, we know that this is a wallet, so it's not a program, which means that it shouldn't be executable. And like we see here, it's marked as not executable. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that it's owned by this program called a system program, which I won't get into, but it's just something that you should keep in mind. We can also look at the tokens. Remember, everything is an account. even tokens. So if we click on this, the USDC coin, like an address, so this is technically still an account address. And we also have information like who can access this account. In this case, there are certain authorities that can use this account data. We'll actually look at mint and freeze authorities later on in this course. Okay, now we're back in the original wallet. If we scroll even further past tokens, we can go and click on a transaction like this one, and then scroll to see that there's something called a token program. Because a token program is a program, it should be executable, which it is. So that was a little exploration about the different types of accounts that we can find. Now, I thought that we could go back to the docs to explore one more term a little bit further. So there's a lot of terms to explore in accounts, but one that I wanted to highlight was something called rent. So I took a screenshot of this and we're gonna explore this term a little bit further on my iPad. You might remember me talking about rent before in one of the lessons in Module 2. Well, this is just gonna be a quick recap about this. Essentially, to keep an account alive on Solana, there is a storage cost called rent because, of course, this account holds data, and in order for this data to be held by the blockchain, you have to pay a certain fee, just like how you would pay for regular storage. So accounts have to pay rent. One rule, though, to be exempt from rent is that if you pay at least 2 years worth of rent, then you are considered rent exempt. So that's all we're gonna cover for accounts. Of course, again, this is only theory. The more you go and work with these accounts and ideas, the more of a grasp you'll get on these concepts. So I'll see you in our last video where we talk about overall concepts with the Solana programming model.